You know, have you ever stopped to think about the central paradox of our lives? We're often told that we come from some perfect divine source, a place where everything is connected. But if that's really true, why do we feel so disconnected so much of the time? Just try to picture that for a second. A source of total harmony. No time, no space, just this pure, unbreakable connection to everything. So if that's where we started, why is it that in our actual day-to-day lives, so many of us feel this deep sense of being separate? I mean, if we came from a place of pure magic and belonging, why wouldn't we just stay there? Well, here's the thing. It turns out the journey isn't about going somewhere else at all. It's really just a tiny shift in how we see things. It's the journey from being nowhere to realizing that we are now here. See that? Same letters, just a little space in between. That's the whole trip. So, here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the great disconnect. Then, we'll explore what's called life's afternoon. After that, we'll dive into the quantum change and see how it leads to a new set of values. And finally, we'll talk about how your afternoon awaits. All right, so let's start at the beginning. How does this great disconnect even happen? Well, it all starts with a pretty fundamental question about the odds of us even being here. I mean, could something this amazing really just be an accident? Okay, imagine this. You've got a massive junkyard filled with millions of pieces of scrap metal and wires. A hurricane roars through, tossing everything into the air. And when all that junk lands, it's perfectly formed into a Boeing 747 ready for takeoff. The chances of that happening are, well, they're basically zero, right? It kind of suggests there has to be some kind of organizing intelligence making it happen. But this is where it gets really mind-blowing. As complex as a 747 is, compared to the miracle of a single human eyeball, that plane is just a tinker toy. So if we all agree a plane needs an intelligent designer, what does that say about the unbelievable intelligence it took to create us? So once we arrive in this world, we start to adopt this belief system, this thing that creates the disconnect. And our source material calls it the ego. It even has a clever acronym for it, edging God out. It's basically that little voice in our head that tells us we're separate, that we're all on our own. And this ego, it has a playbook. It operates on 6 big lies. It tells us, I am what I have, I am what I do, and I am what other people think of me. And then it hits us with the big ones. I am separate from everyone else, I am separate from the things I want in my life, and ultimately, I am separate from God. But here's the good news. This ego-driven life has an expiration date. There's a turning point that many of us reach, a really powerful idea that the psychologist Carl Jung called the afternoon of life. And what Jung was getting at is really deep. He was saying that all the values and goals that worked for us when we were young, in the morning of our lives, they just stop working as we get older. The old rules no longer apply. So let me ask you this. Have you ever had that feeling where the things that used to drive you, the ambition, chasing goals, needing everyone's approval, suddenly just feel kind of empty? That feeling? Well, that's you stepping into the afternoon of your life. So what happens when we hit that wall? What happens when the old ways just don't work anymore? Well, this is where a really powerful concept comes in, something called the quantum change. Now, this isn't some slow, gradual shift. A quantum change is a sudden breakthrough. It's a vivid, powerful aha moment where your whole worldview gets turned upside down and the new perspective sticks with you forever. These moments have 4 key things in common. First, they are always a surprise. You can't plan for one. Second, they're incredibly vivid and crystal clear. Third, they always feel benevolent, rooted in a sense of goodness and love. And maybe most importantly, they're enduring. This isn't a temporary high, it's a permanent shift. So what happens on the other side of a big experience like that? Well, your entire value system gets a complete overhaul. And when researchers actually studied this phenomenon, what they found was absolutely fascinating. Just look at this data from men. In life's morning, their top values are things like wealth, adventure, achievement, all very external. But after this quantum change, look at the list. Number 1 becomes spirituality, then personal peace, family. It's a complete 180 from seeking external validation to finding internal fulfillment. And for women, the shift is just as dramatic. In the morning, you see values like family, career, and fitting in. But after the change, the top priorities become personal growth, self-esteem, and spirituality. It's a powerful move away from just fulfilling roles for others to truly fulfilling the self. So, what's the big takeaway here? It's that this journey from feeling disconnected to feeling connected, from living by the ego's rules to living an inspired life, it's a totally natural part of growing up. It's about letting go of what used to work to make room for a much deeper truth. And that brings us right back to Jung's incredible insight, which just sums it all up perfectly. The things that seemed so important in our youth can start to feel pretty small later on, and the truths we built our lives on can, over time, reveal themselves to be lies. So I want to leave you with this one last thought to chew on. Take a second and think about your own journey. What was a core truth from the morning of your life that now, as you head into your afternoon, might just be starting to feel like a lie?